Oh, boy. All right. What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome to the Department of Hoops pregame show for Washington's November 8th game in Memphis, playing the Grizzlies at 8 p.m. here. As always, we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside Hard Iced Teas and BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, entertainment, and political props, head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Will, happy to be on with you. Should be an interesting one here for the Wizards in Memphis. A lot of injuries going on here, especially on Memphis' side with Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Gigi Jackson, Marcus Smart, all out for the Grizzlies. Obviously, Kyle Kuzma still out for the Wizards. What do you think that sort of dynamic leads to for Washington, and what can we be expecting today?
Honestly, it should be competitive because with the Grizzlies missing that many people, that's a big chunk of their roster. I mean, Ja obviously is Ja Morant. We know what he brings to the table, but with no Marcus Smart, they don't really have a point guard that I think they're going to run out there. So I think Jalen Wells is going to get a lot of time on ball. You know, no Desmond Bane, no Vince Williams Jr. So it's going to be an interesting game just from Memphis's perspective to see how they kind of approach that challenge. I'm kind of curious what they're going to do. But, you know, it's an NBA team. These guys have tons of talented guys. So it should be – I'm looking forward to a competitive game. Part of me is pretty bummed that Ja is out just because of Draymond are young, but they're bona fide shit talkers. And coming off Ja talking some smack to the Lakers in his last game, I was kind of really looking forward to see how those two guys would clash together. But either way, it should be a pretty fun game. But yeah, a lot of injuries on both sides. But I think that's going to be, you know, you're not going to see as clean basketball as you will because it's going to be people playing above their position and they're going to get a lot more reps. But I think it's going to be, you know, I think it's going to be a fun one to watch just because you do get to see Jalen Wells specifically. I think he's had a great rookie year for Memphis. I'm kind of curious what he's going to do. But same thing on the Wizards side. I just want to see our young guys ball out. I want to see Bub get a lot of minutes. I want to see Kaishan George coming off his last great game where he, you know, hit 6 threes and scored 20. I want to see if he can keep that momentum going. And then just from the Wizards' overall perspective, I hope we can start hitting some of our open shots just because we've been generating a lot of them, but they're just bricking them. So hopefully they can capitalize on the test with a depleted Memphis roster, and maybe we see a win tonight. But, you know, given the tenor of the season and what the goals are for it, I don't think any of us is going to be mad if we get a loss, but I do think a W is achievable tonight. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned the rookies like Keyshawn George and Bub, obviously. I think one thing that's really interesting is obviously Memphis has that size inside, both with Jaren Jackson being one of the best rim protectors in the league, and obviously Zach Edey now standing at 7'4". Do you think that opens maybe the priority for the Wizards to rely on guys like Jordan Poole and those other two rookies on the perimeter to really do the work from beyond the arc?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to get a big Jordan Poole game potentially, and maybe some, you know, bigger games from Bub and from Kaishan and even Corey. Corey Kispert's been struggling, and I think this is an opportunity for him to kind of pop off and get back into form. But yeah, you mentioned the bigs. One matchup I'm really looking forward to is Edey and Sarr. I know, you know, Edey's just a big dude, but we do have the size down there to match up with him between Valanciunas and Sarr. And I know Bagley right now is questionable to play, but all of those guys I think are more than capable of kind of holding their own down there. And then, you know, Jaren Jackson obviously poses his own challenges, but I'm more excited to kind of see that Sarr-Edey dynamic just because it's the two rookies and they're both so far playing pretty well this season. So, you know, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he can step up to the challenge. But yeah, to your point, I think the perimeter guys are positioned to have themselves a pretty good game.
And I know you mentioned Jordan Poole, possibly a big game from him. Maybe compared to what you were expecting, obviously there was a lot of talk going into there about him being the guy, especially on the ball. What have you seen sort of through the early part of the season from him?
So I've really liked everything I've seen from Jordan Poole this year. I was someone who was very, very excited to bring him in last season through the trade for Chris Paul. And I was really excited to see what he could do given kind of a full runway to be the guy and have all these shot opportunities. And, with Tyus Jones and the way that whole team shook out last year, his role was never really what it is currently. And I think this season, we're finally getting to see some of that promise that a lot of people were expecting. The player we saw when Golden State won their championship, when he was a part of that roster, he's playing that type of role just with way more freedom. And he kind of gets the liberty to be the guy because, it's a blank slate, especially with Kuz being out. It was this kind of 1A, 1B dynamic where you'd see them play off of each other. And it's like, all right, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. But I'm not seeing, I kind of thought I'd see some selfishness from Jordan Poole, considering he's playing with three rookies. But, props to him. He's really taken it upon himself to kind of mentor these young guys. And he's getting them the ball. He's passing, he's distributing. We're missing shots. So I couldn't be happier with Roll. And honestly, the biggest thing I need to give him a shout out for is, he's obviously hitting his threes, but defensively, he's been very, very engaged on that end. I don't know if he still is currently, but he was leading the league in steals at one point. He had 7 stocks last game. So, the activity is a huge plus. And that just shows me how seriously he's taking his role as a leader and a mentor for these young guys. Yeah, big shout out to Jordan Poole. I've been really happy with how he's been playing this season. I hope he can keep it up because whether he's a part of our future long term, I think that's a role that he can expand on. Or if he keeps playing like this, that's the type of player that other teams may want on his contract, and you could maybe get a good trade return for him. But he's in a really good position because he could stick around for the long haul if he sees that as what he wants to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it feels like this is the first time we're really seeing vet version of Jordan Poole. Especially in Golden State, he was the young guy. Now it seems like both in terms of age, being, especially in this starting five, the only one over, I think maybe 21, with Bilal being a second year, then 3 rookies. So it's interesting to see him sort of step into that vet role. Going back to Sar, like you mentioned, that matchup with him and Edey, what do you think the causes maybe are for optimism there? And what are you hoping to see from him tonight?
So from Sar's perspective, I think he's still clearly a work in progress on the offensive end. But I go back to that Heat game where I saw him being pretty aggressive at Bam Adebayo, of all people. He was not afraid to run at him in transition. He was not afraid to take shots over him or try and go at him at the rim. And all things considered, I think he had a good outing. I'm looking to see him carry over some of that same aggression on the offensive end. And I hope he can kind of take the challenge personally because it's another big in his class that's getting a lot of, respect for coming onto the scene and playing well. But defensively, I just kind of hope Sar can kind of keep up the same activity he's been doing. He's been all over the place. He's had at least 2 blocks every game. I think he's the only rookie to do that since Sean Bradley. So, I think what we're seeing from Sar is kind of what a lot of people expected. And I really hope he can build that momentum. But Edey's going to pose a really good challenge because Edey's a big dude, but he's got really nice touch around the rim. So it's not something where he's just going to get bruised around. He can score with some finesse if he needs to. So just more of that defensive versatility from Sar. But yeah, offensively, I want to see him try and go at dudes. Might be tough with, both Edey and Jaren Jackson because Jaren Jackson's also a phenomenal defensive center. But hey, so's Bam, and that didn't stop him from going at him. So aggression is the thing from all the young guys. And I've seen plenty of it from Bob. I've seen plenty of it from George. And I do see it from Sar, but I just want to keep seeing put their foot on the gas and just go at people.
For sure. And that sounds like, especially in a season like this, it's one of the keys, no matter what the game is. And I know you mentioned Zach Edey. A lot of people will throw out the just tall with him, but as you mentioned, the touch, he can go over both shoulders. It should make it interesting to see 4-star what he can do defensively. Then obviously offensively, it might be tough, but we've seen him do it, as you mentioned, against Bam. Moving on to the other rookies, I think that's probably another area that people want to talk about. Bub Carrington, what have you sort of seen from him, and especially against a backcourt that's depleted? What do you want for him specifically?
Bub is more than I kind of could have hoped for. I really liked him coming out, and he still just kind of jumped onto the scene. And he not only is he doing kind of what I thought he'd do, but he's also just like doing it pretty well, especially, on the context of a rookie.
Right.
I looked over some of the stats on the team right now. He's second in the team in assists, but he has a 3.6 assist to turnover ratio. That's really, really good for a rookie and a guy who's second in assists. He's got I think he's averaging 4.8 a game. And I talked about this with Matt a while back. He's kind of playing that role that I thought Brogdon was going to take, where he's just kind of this steady hand guy that can get you a bucket. He can hit a shot. What he's going to bring on the defensive end, but he's also just going to be able to right the ship at times. But the biggest thing is he's just a dog defensively. He has great motor, and he doesn't back down from anybody. And I saw it the first game. He's willing to get in guys' faces and step in front of them. They shove him. He shoves right back and puts his body. And I mean, getting the kind of praise that he got from Draymond, both him and Keyshawn for not being afraid to talk and just get after people. That's exactly what this Wizards team has been missing for so long. We haven't had that kind of identity where, these guys are going to come and compete. You see a game like tonight where the injury report is filled up with Memphis. In the past, that was something where teams were like, this can be a rest day because we're playing the Wizards. Whereas, maybe there's some of that in there because we do have relative to the rest of the league, our roster I don't think is as strong, but I don't have any doubts that night in and night out, these young guys are going to come in and compete. And, that's all I can ask for. I don't care if we, lose a bunch of games this year because I kind of expected it. I just want to see them go out there and put their best foot forward and just keep competing, keep trying to stay aggressive, get at the rim, do what works best for you. Keyshawn, keep throwing shot, or keep saying Keyshawn. It's Keyshawn. So my bad if you're watching Keyshawn or anybody who's offended, but I want to see him keep throwing up shots. I know he struggled to hit from deep through the season, but now that he saw a couple go in through his last game, maybe he can just kind of keep that momentum going. But I don't think that's something where they're, they make a couple misses and they get down on themselves. These guys are high level competitors. But yeah, Bub, I think could have a really big game tonight, just with all the bodies missing. And, he's getting, well over 20 minutes a game. All our young guys are. I want to see him. I want to see a big Bub game. We got the and that's not to say he's had great games. He had, I think 16, 8 and 6 a couple nights ago. And then, Keyshawn has his 20-point game. Sar has a double-double. He keeps blocking people, but I want to see a statement game from Bub. And we'll see if he can pull it off. I think this is the night we can do it. No Marcus Smart, no Ja, it's just you versus Jalen Wells. Go at him.
Yeah, and a lot of those traits you mentioned aren't things you usually see or hear about from a rookie. So I think that's been one of the things that's been maybe most refreshing, especially because he's not old for a rookie either. He was a one and done young guy coming in. Obviously, all rookies will have their moments, especially this year. There haven't been many rookies who've stepped in right away and shown their bona fide stars, but I think Bub's been pretty impressive in that regard. Then finally, on to the last thing, some predictions. Any score, outcome, guesses on your end? What are you thinking we're going to see tonight?
I think it is going to be a lower scoring game, and we might see some sloppy basketball on both sides. And I think the Wizards actually can win this one. It's going to be, if we shoot the ball like we've been shooting it and just keep bricking open threes, it's hard to win a game if you're 20-25% from the 3-point line, but we're generating good looks. And if you can do that against a depleted roster and start hitting them, I think it's very likely that we do get a win tonight, but I also wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if we lose this one. But I'm going to stamp it. I think the Wizards actually might crawl out of here with a W. But yeah, as long as I'm seeing, the same thing I've been seeing the last few games of the young guys, even if they're down 20, they're still trying hard. They're still competing. They're going for boards. They're bumping people. That's all I want to see. Build good habits, play the right way, play hard, play fast, get out and transition. That's what our identity needs to be. We're shifting out of this period where we've been this weird, just for lack of a better, we've just been a bad team and franchise for the last couple of years. And now I feel like we finally have some kind of identity building around 3 young guys that are defensive studs. And I haven't even mentioned Bilal Coulibaly. I think Bilal has a massive game tonight because who's out there to stop him? I don't know who really matches up with him from a size perspective on Memphis's side. But, to that point, guys like Bilal, Sarr, and you see the activity from Bub, you see the even Keyshawn is, when his shots aren't falling, he's locked in on the defensive end. Those are 4 guys who are all under the age of 21 that are all strong two-way players. There's still a lot of developing that needs to be done, but you can clearly see there's a vision behind building behind defense, versatility, length, and shooting. And that's what I want to see. I want to see them defend hard against the Grizzlies because they don't really have as many offensive options and people that can initiate. I think Memphis' leading scorer tonight is either going to be Jalen Wells or Santi Almada. And, it could be Edie, but yeah, I'm hoping our leading scorer is, I would love to see Bilal or Bub. It's probably going to be Poole. I think he has the propensity to go off, and he's been hot from deep. But yeah, hopefully the Wizards can walk out of here with a W. And I don't think it'll affect our tank that much because Brooklyn's already won 4 games, and they're supposed to be the worst team in the league. So, that's where I hope the chips fall.
Yeah, and I agree. This feels like it's one that could be a lot more competitive than people would expect given the injury situation. And it should be fun to see what these young guys can do. I think that's one of the most refreshing things of the season, letting the young guys rock a little bit. So it should be a good one. I'm excited to see what happens. And Will, it was a pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening. And we'll see hopefully a Wizards win in a few hours now.
All right, y'all. Catch you later.
Later.